All right, well, thank you for joining us today. I am Josh Kaul, and I am joined by three members of our team at the Wisconsin Department of Justice. And we are here today to announce that yesterday the Wisconsin Department of Justice, on behalf of DATCAP, the Department of Agriculture, Transportation and Consumer Protection, Trade and Consumer Protection, thank you, we filed a civil enforcement action against Barada Properties Management, as well as Joe Barada. First, I want to say thank you to DATCAP for their investigative work. They worked with the three folks here with me, Assistant AG Robert Brissett, Assistant AG Greg Miskowski, and Wendy Pfeiffer, who have been doing the work to put together the complaint that was filed yesterday. So this is a civil enforcement action. We are seeking three core pieces of relief. Number one, injunctive relief, requesting that Barada Properties Management's practice and Joe Barada's practices come into compliance with the law. We are seeking restitution, and we are seeking civil forfeitures. Now, the complaint sets forth numerous allegations. I want to stress these are just allegations. The burden of proof to establish liability is on the state. But the complaint alleges, among many other things, that the standard rental agreements that were used by the defendants included a number of illegal provisions. For example, standard agreements included requirements that tenants pay attorney's fees and court fees for eviction actions. The standard agreements also waived the duty to make repairs for tenants. They also waived liability for negligent acts that were committed by the landlord. Until mid-2020, there was a bedbug and roaches addendum that required tenants to pay attorney's fees related to infestations and claimed to waive liability for the landlord when an infestation occurred. The complaint also alleges that remodeling projects were conducted unlawfully and that there were a variety of practices that occurred when remodeling has happened that violate state law, including entering tenants' property without proper notice. In addition, there are allegations that late fees that were charged to renters were done in violation of the law, sometimes in ways that were inconsistent with the terms of the rental agreement. This is an example of the work that DATCAP and the Wisconsin Department of Justice does to protect the public in Wisconsin. When our consumer laws are violated and when the provisions of administrative code are violated, we work to enforce those laws to make sure that folks are getting justice. I want to encourage anybody reporting who has knowledge either of wrongdoing involving Barada Property Management, Joe Barada, or anybody else who's violating our consumer protection laws to contact the DATCAP, the Wisconsin Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection, to report those violations so appropriate follow-up can happen. Now, we are entering the litigation phase of this case. As you all know, litigation can take a period of time to play out. And as I mentioned, these are allegations at this point. But if you're interested, we can provide you with a copy of the complaint that has been filed. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Considering Barada has God knows how many LLCs, is that going to be a problem forcing the LLCs to prove ownership or prove liability to him?
I'm not going to go into details about the sort of legal issues in the case, but what I can say is that the defendants who have been charged in the case are Barada Property Management, as well as Joe Barada. The complaint alleges that Joe Barada himself signed many of the agreements that are at issue, and the complaint specifically mentions the numerous LLCs that are involved. As you mentioned, Mr. Barada is the landlord in numerous properties, and the allegations are that this involves, among other things, the standard rental agreements that had been used, and so the number of violations alleged is numerous. One of the things that we'll see as the discovery process moves forward is precisely how many people have been impacted. But as we just mentioned, Mr. Barada is the landlord at numerous properties, and some of the allegations relate to the standard agreement. So it's a large number of people that have been impacted by what's been alleged. It's a large number. He's the owner of a significant percentage of rental properties in the city of Milwaukee, and because it's the standard agreement, it impacts a number of those renters.
How long has the state been looking into Mr. Barada?
I'm not going to go into the specific details about the length of the investigation, but as you can see from the complaint, this has been a thorough review of practices. The complaint itself is certainly dozens of pages long, and this process continues. We continue to request that people provide us with information, but the court process will also play on for a period of time. The complaint involves allegations that go back several years, though.
Assuming there's lots and lots of landlords in the state of Wisconsin, are there other landlords who are doing things like this that you guys are also looking into?
Well, right now we're focused on Barada Properties Management and Mr. Barada. One thing that is important, and I think is worth emphasizing, as I mentioned before, is that through our Public Protection Unit at the Wisconsin Department of Justice, we work to enforce laws that protect consumers. And when there are violations of those laws, we're going to take action to make sure that we're getting justice for people who've been impacted. And my hope is that landlords who may be uncertain about what the law is will look it up and make sure that they are carefully following the laws, because the laws we have in place are there to protect renters in Wisconsin from the consequences of unfair practices, and it's vital that landlords follow those laws. Okay.
Is there, as you know, Barada's kind of been the king of evictions for quite a while. Specific to the suit dealing with the eviction practices?
Some of the allegations in the complaint relate to the eviction practices. So, for example, one of the things that's alleged is that there was these standard conditions that the tenants had to pay attorney's fees and court costs when evictions took place. Some of the late fee charges, their allegations, would lead to the eviction process. So it does relate to some of the evictions that have taken place.
Early on in the pandemic, he was pretty aggressive in terms of continuing to do renovations at the apartments, having his people go in the apartments, so on and so forth. Do you know if that's slowed down since you guys got interested, or are they still doing it?
Well, one of the things that we'll see as the discovery process plays out is exactly how some of those things are unfolding. But some of the allegations in the complaint are that tenants' properties were entered without proper notice. Sometimes when there was an acquisition made by Barada Property Management and remodeling would take place, people would get very limited notice about needing to leave the property. And as the discovery process moves forward, we'll get further information about relating to the allegations that were made in the complaint. All right, I don't see any other questions, so thank you all. We appreciate it.